Hello there, all my apprentice mages. This is the Blue Wizard, and today we're going to be talking about hypnosis. So, one of the things, this is the first part of this, because it's such a long subject that I think that I could probably talk about it for 2 days. And I just, we could spend several hours here discussing hypnosis and everything I know about it. I've been studying hypnosis for years and years. In fact, it's how I got into my magical practice. So I was a hypnotist first and a magician second, because I was a scientist first and a magician second, which is still kind of true. The way that I go about my magical practice is very scientific. I test things out. I look things up. For me, it's very much a research project as much as it is a way of living. So a lot of things are hypnosis. Prayer, mostly hypnosis. A lot of prayer is adjusting your expectations to what you want the universe to give you. And by expecting those things, you do little subconscious things to make them happen. That is also hypnosis, the placebo effect. Oh, you have a suggestion that something's going to work, and so your mind thinks that it's going to happen, and so your body tries to physically make it happen. Oh, that sounds a lot like hypnosis too. Lots of things that one might not imagine to be hypnosis are actually hypnosis. Hypnosis is everywhere, or I should say suggestion is everywhere. And the way that your mind reacts to suggestion, the interaction between your conscious and subconscious mind, is referred to in clinical terms as hypnosis. That being said, here's things that aren't hypnosis. Dreams are not hypnosis. Dreams are your subconscious mind speaking, well, not really speaking, but processing information that you've absorbed during the day, or that you've absorbed in life that hasn't been processed yet. It processes that unprocessed information, and then your conscious mind then interprets this information being processed as a story because it wants it to make sense. So basically, let's say you're processing your day at the office, but you're also processing an old Looney Tunes episode you saw one time. So you're in the office, and then Bugs Bunny shows up, and then Bugs Bunny draws a door on the wall, and then you walk through the door, and now you're in the cartoon. Now, the truth of it is that your brain was processing your day at the office, and then your brain was processing the whole, Looney Tunes thing, and there was no connection between them. But your mind doesn't like that, so it creates a narrative to make that story, Office, then Looney Tunes, make sense. It makes up the memory of Bugs Bunny drawing the hole on the side of the wall, and then you walking through it, and then you being in Looney Tunes land. So that's how dreams work, and dreams are kind of like your subconscious mind making suggestions to you, except suggestions imply purpose, and the subconscious mind is definitely not purposefully telling you stories through your dreams. You're creating stories of what your subconscious mind is processing. Dreams happen during REM sleep. This is another difference from hypnosis. Hypnosis, ironically, we'll get into why it's ironic later, is not a state of dreaming at all. This is why no modern hypnotist uses the phrase, "you are getting very sleepy," because you're definitely not getting sleepy. That's not what hypnosis is. Now, some people do fall asleep during hypnosis, but at that point, they're no longer hypnotized because they're in the state of sleep. These are two very different consciousnesses. So we'll talk about that, because distinguishing between the two is important. Another thing that isn't hypnosis is meditation. Meditation is pretty strictly defined as an observation of something, an awareness of something. So when you're going through the process of meditation, you're aware of your breath, you're aware of your thoughts and feelings. You're basically out on the lookout for the things that are not only going on around you, but in you especially. And that internal awareness is supposed to get it so that you have more control and more observation of what's going on in your thoughts and your feelings. It allows you to be better at controlling your internal workings because you're actually able to see and feel the, things that lead up to your actions. This interconnectivity to the subconscious mind is similar to dreaming in the sense that you are receiving messages from your subconscious mind. The difference is the intent. Instead of your brain just trying to make sense of what your subconscious mind is saying, you're just watching it. You're just understanding it because you are awake and not asleep. And so, Now, meditation is sometimes a very vivid experience where, you're seeing things as if you're dreaming, but the difference is that you're very much awake and you're very much conscious, and that changes things a lot. You also don't have the same level of control as you do in a lucid dream, usually. In a lucid dream, you can control where you go, what you do, all that stuff. Hypnosis is much more about listening than it is about controlling. There's no bad thing about, lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming is fantastic if you can swing it. In fact, there are kinds of hypnosis that you can do while you're lucid dreaming, even though those states are very different. Or I should say there are kind of suggestions that you can make during lucid dreams. But it's just important to acknowledge the distinction that meditation is not hypnosis. They're very different things. In meditation, you're receiving your thoughts and feelings and acknowledging them and acknowledging the things that are happening around you and processing those things, rather than telling your subconscious mind to work in a certain way. Hypnosis is, pretty strictly speaking, your conscious mind, while you're awake, telling your subconscious mind to work a certain way. It is suggestions. You are making suggestions to your brain about how it is supposed to work, or having somebody else do that for you. But we're going to talk about some more misconceptions. So let me grab my notes. Yeah, you can tell this video is official. Wrote it on a notepad. So hypnosis is arguably invented in 1774 by a guy by the name of Franz Anton Mesmer. He invented a form of hypnosis known widely as mesmerism, based off of the theory of animal magnetism, which we could do a whole video about animal magnetism. It's right up there with the humors and with the universal fluids as far as debunked theories about how the universe works. But just know, animal magnetism, it's a thing. But he did create the first basic processes for how hypnosis would later on be performed. So he did create mesmerism. Technically, hypnosis is his baby, sort of. See, the thing is, hypnosis has been performed all throughout human history. As long as human beings have had fire and instruments, we've been hypnotizing people. Some of the oldest forms of hypnosis are tribal dances and other stuff. It's just that we didn't have a name for it. So it's a little bit like us saying that we invented America because we came here and named it. It had names before we came here, Arguably, though, we invented America because we created it in its modern form. But, saying that does reduce the complexity of the issue. We definitely didn't create this continent, its people, its landmarks, etc. So, similarly, Anton Mesmer did not really invent hypnosis. People have been using hypnosis since probably as early as the Mesopotamian era, maybe even before that. Art has existed for a long time, and dance and music has existed for a long time, and a lot of times music in tribal settings is used for hypnotic rituals, so usually using the process of binaural stimulation. So arguably, cavemen could have been using hypnosis. We have no idea. So, but we date it to Mesmer because he was the first guy that wrote down a process, so we're not going to pick too hard. Mesmerism, fine. So, James Braid, I believe is how you pronounce his name. It could be Brad, but it has an I, so I'm going to go ahead and go with James Braid. Named hypnosis in 1840-ish. So the word hypnosis is in reference to the god of sleep from Greek mythology. So there's the god of sleep, hypnos. In Greek mythology, he's the god of sleep, and so hypnosis is basically like the way of hypnos is a way of thinking of the description, the etymology of the word. But hypnosis isn't sleep. You're awake during hypnosis. So it's actually a really, really bad name because it does not describe what hypnosis is. 20 to 40 years later, Sigmund Freud started very famously using hypnosis. A lot of his thoughts and feelings on hypnosis were kind of bunk, and have been disproven. But at the same time, one cannot, not acknowledge his contribution, I suppose, to psychiatrics. For instance, he was kind of the first person to distinguish between the conscious and subconscious. Again, I would say that those distinctions existed long before Freud, but he made some very noteworthy observations scientifically when it came to how the subconscious and conscious mind interacted, and he applied hypnosis to discover a lot of those interactions in a time before brain scans and such. And so his research involving hypnosis and the subconscious mind can't really be understated. He also recorded some of his own induction methods into hypnosis, so arguably he is as important as James Braid and Franz Anton Mesmer. The thing is about Freud is that Freud leaves a negative taste in a lot of people's mouths. He was kind of a sexist. He had some very weird and goofy observations about the world that don't make a lot of sense. And even his thoughts on hypnosis, he basically invented stage hypnosis, trying to get the people to fund his research and get them on board. He made a show out of hypnosis, which, of course, magicians would pick up on because of how popular Freud's hypnosis was. So, in a lot of the ways, even though he brought scientific credibility to hypnosis, he also created the tools by which hypnosis would later be made a, mocking, ridiculing kind of thing. A lot of people are very critical of hypnosis, and a lot of the reasons that they're critical of it is because of the way stage hypnosis is employed. A lot of their problems with hypnosis have nothing to do with the actual therapeutic practice of hypnosis, but rather what they see in stage shows. And he basically invented the hypnosis stage show. So, thank you, Freud. But still, he was a very good psychologist for his time. He was using the tools of his day. He was a man of his day, so we can't go back in time and be like, oh, Freud was such a terrible guy, because, compared to the people of his time, he was probably a pretty great guy, It's just a shame how he taught people about hypnosis, because it really colored people's perception of hypnosis and the way that they think about it today. And we're going to go into that because all of the misconceptions that I have are basically things people have picked up from stage hypnosis over the years. So I'm going to go into all the misconceptions, and I'm going to talk to you as much as I possibly can about these things so that you know what hypnosis isn't, before we go into what hypnosis is and finally how to actually do it. So, misconception number 1. The stupid are vulnerable. So, this misconception is pretty basic. I can't be hypnotized. I'm not a dummy. I ain't so stupid your mind tricks won't work on me. You hear this kind of thing a lot. Sorry for the southern accent. Sorry. But you hear this kind of thing a lot. From all sorts of people. But usually, somebody will say very strongly, I'm smart, hypnosis don't work on me. And it's like, that's not how hypnosis works. Hypnosis actually requires you to observe what's going on around you. It actually requires you to change the way that you're thinking about things. And so the more adaptable, flexible, and intelligent your mind is, the more likely you are to be able to be hypnotized. So it's not a mark of stupidity to be, hypnotized. It's a mark of intelligence. This idea that I'm so smart I can't be hypnotized is really ingrained in the popular consciousness. And this unfortunately makes people want to resist hypnosis more than they normally would, because they're trying to prove that they are intelligent and strong-willed. That's another thing, the whole my will isn't weak, I can resist hypnosis. Of course you can resist hypnosis, because hypnosis is a voluntary process. You can resist hypnosis the same way that you can resist, working out. It's something you do. You can resist hypnosis the same way you resist the urge to dance. Somebody can put on music that makes you want to dance, and you still not dance. It's up to you what you do and don't do. And hypnosis is something that you do. Yes, sometimes it requires a partner if you're doing the kind of induction hypnosis that requires an actual therapist. But it's still something you're choosing to do with somebody. And if they want you to do it and you don't want to, then you won't do it, of course. So this whole I'm strong-willed, so nobody can hypnotize me. Well, you're absolutely right. If you're bending your strong will towards the direction of being unhypnotizable, then congratulations, you will never be hypnotized. But arguably, that's a terrible thing, because hypnosis is a really powerful tool for doing all kinds of stuff. So, let's see. Thing number 2. Hypnosis don't work on me. Okay, so sometimes people don't have the issue where they're like, okay, I'm too smart for hypnosis, or I'm too strong-willed hypnosis. They just have the general notion that they are hypnosis proof. I think that a lot of these people have either tried to allow a stage hypnotist to hypnotize them, or are under one of the previously conceived mentions of why people don't want to be hypnotized, or they do have some level of natural resistance to hypnosis for some reason, and just haven't seen the right therapist to actually address those resistances. But for whatever the reason, they seem to be under the impression that hypnosis is something that it isn't. Hypnosis is kind of the natural process of your conscious and unconscious mind working together, and actually happens to you whether there's a hypnotist around or not. If you're ever on a long car ride and you stare out the window and you look at the lines passing you by, 1 line, 2 line, 3 line, 4 line, very fast, very, very quickly. But at the same time, you're seeing each individual line, and they're going past, and they're going past. And as they're speeding along, the world slows down. Everything else is going slowly. You're just watching the lines. And then 10 minutes pass, and you thought it was only 1. That right there, that process of losing track of time, that's something that we call time dilation, and it's something that happens all the time in hypnotic processes. That is actually called level 1 hypnosis, what you're experiencing right there. If you've ever played a video game and you thought you only played for 5 minutes, but you actually played for like 2 or 3 hours, and your mom's like, you've been playing that game all day, and you're like, but Mom, I only played for an hour. Guess what? You were hypnotized. Pretty much everybody is hypnotized. Well, it's like less than 0.01% of the population that's actually like completely hypnosis proof. And if you can be hypnotized at level 1 hypnosis, then you can probably be hypnotized at level 2 or 3 hypnosis as well. We'll discuss the different levels of hypnosis as we go. But yes, chances are you can be hypnotized regardless of what a stage magician has tried to do to you, and regardless of your resistance to being hypnotized by an actual hypnotist. Chances are you just haven't had the right guy or haven't been open enough to the experience yet. So continuing on from that, there's people that believe a little too strongly in hypnosis, that are worried about being hypnotized because they're worried about the hypnotist in question controlling their mind completely. This idea that somebody can puppet master you around with hypnosis. This is absolutely not true. It's true that your conscious mind is busy observing your subconscious mind, and that your body can move around sort of without you willing it to, if you've made suggestions that allow that. But every suggestion made by hypnosis always goes through your conscious mind. Every time. Your conscious mind is never shut down in the process of hypnosis. It's always running because, again, hypnosis is your conscious and subconscious mind having a conversation. Specifically, one where you are speaking to your subconscious mind. If your subconscious mind was speaking to you, then it would probably be meditation. Sometimes there's enough overlap, though, that you can just call it a dialogue. So, because of that, there's absolutely no way that the hypnotist is going to give you the suggestion to kill your neighbor or steal your mother's pearls or whatever you're worried about them commanding you to do, or forcing you to reveal some piece of information about yourself that you don't want to. No, absolutely not. It's absolutely not going to happen. You have complete control during hypnosis. Hypnosis is something that you're doing to yourself, possibly with the aid of another person, possibly not, because there is such a thing as self-hypnosis. We'll talk about that. It's very important. But yes, there's absolutely no way that you're going to be puppet mastered into doing something you don't want to do. If you've ever seen somebody be made to speak in a silly accent, like they're Sean Connery, or roll around a room like a ninja, or flap around like a chicken, that's because of one of two things. Either they're pretending to be hypnotized and they're just doing whatever they want to do inhibition-free because they can blame it on the hypnosis, or they are hypnotized and are completely okay with these suggestions and are allowing their subconscious mind to let them dance like a chicken or roll around like a ninja or pretend to be Sean Connery or whatever. So that's one of the biggest misconceptions I run into. People are like, I don't want anybody controlling my mind. It's like, no one can except you. Then the exception, of course, the exception to this is drugs. If people are using drugs in combination with hypnosis, drugs can make you more suggestible. So if you're very drunk or you're very high off of something and someone's trying to hypnotize you, your inhibitions can be lowered. If they're also very good with their suggestions, they can really have a deeper impact than they'd normally have, and somebody could be caught unaware. So, if you're under the influence, I don't advise being around people who you think desire to manipulate you at all, even if they're not necessarily a hypnotist. Look at somebody like Charles Manson. He gave his followers drugs and then would give them sermons, but he used a lot of heightened speech that was very good at, basically inducing them into hypnosis. So he was definitely using like this drug-induced hypnosis that was much more powerful than what a regular hypnotist would ever have over you. So, don't fuck around with hypnosis under the influence, kids. Bad go of it. Really, it is. So now we're going to talk about it not being real. So this is something that's thrown out as this big negative. I tried hypnosis once, and nothing happened. Okay, so let's say that this isn't the same thing as them not being able to be hypnotized. Let's say that they were hypnotized, but that they just weren't able to create any mental change. So this is basically, they've gone through the state of going into the relaxed state. They've made the connection between their conscious and subconscious mind. They made the suggestion, and nothing happened. Well, it takes anywhere from 3 weeks of regular hypnosis, once or twice a week, for an hour or two each session. It can take anywhere from 3 weeks of that to 3 months of that for a suggestion to actually sink into the subconscious mind. A lot of things are, part of that. Does the person have aphantasia? Are they capable of visualizing things visually? Is positive and negative association being used? How skilled is the hypnotist? How willing is the person? How much natural resistance to hypnosis do they have? How long and how consistent is the suggestion being made? What are the person's thoughts and feelings about the habit that they're trying to change? There's all sorts of things that go into whether or not hypnosis is actually going to accomplish what you want it to. It's a powerful tool in the right hands and at the right times. But, at the wrong hands and the wrong times or ineffective hands, then, it won't do anything. So, also, it happens in your mind, so you kind of decide whether or not it's real. You are using your imagination in part when it comes to hypnosis. It is sort of a way of willing yourself to be a certain way. So if you're going to say, well, it's not real, it's all in your head, well, I hate to break it to you, but so is dialectical therapy and pretty much every other type of psychology. Pretty much all of it is all in your head. I mean, when somebody asks you... if a psychologist asks you how a new drug that they've prescribed you is working, they don't ask you, like, how does the chemical balance of your brain feel today? Because that's something they could just do a test. They ask you, how are you feeling? How's the new medication and the new dosage making you feel? That's because your perception of reality and whether or not it's been altered in a positive way by the medication is the goal. It's the sum total of what that psychiatrist is trying to achieve. Similarly, psychologists, verbal therapists, and hypnotists are all trying to see if positive alterations have been made in the therapy. So, your perception of that is very important to the notes that they make. So this idea like, oh, well, hypnosis is just something in your mind, so it's not real. Well, your mind is real. Your mind is a physical thing called the brain. It's 3 pounds. It's in between your ears, and the things that you notice going on in your brain are real. I mean, what evidence would you have for hypnosis outside of your own perception? The answer to that is none, because there is no other evidence. So, yes, it's imagined. It's also real. It's both of those things, because it has to be, because that's how all mental processes are. It's a lot of people would say it's real if you want it to be. I would say it's real when you observe it to be. It's become real to you once you start observing the changes that hypnosis can do. If you've ever gotten to that deep relaxed state where your limbs go numb and your body sort of locks into place and you've actually start seeing and hearing things when you're hypnotized, you'll stop asking yourself whether or not hypnosis is real, because you've actually experienced it on a level where you're like, I'm pretty fucking sure hypnosis is real. But there are people that are just like, it's imaginary, and it's like, yeah, no duh. It's basically imagination with purpose is a fine way to describe hypnosis, and it's also a fine way to describe most magical practices in general. Imagination with purpose. This leads us pretty nicely, actually, into a modern practice, which is picking up a lot of steam on TikTok and other sources. So people have begun dabbling with hypnosis. A lot of them don't know it. They're calling it reality shifting. And reality shifting is very popular these days, especially in the 12 to 14-year-old crowd. Basically, people are using hypnotic induction rituals that they have kind of they're kind of using the greatest hits and have sort of created this very new amalgam of things that is much more about quantity over quality. Like, they want a lot of hypnosis. They want like deep into stage 3 hypnosis. They want to have as much visual and audio stuff. Like, they want to be like they're experiencing a lucid dream while they're awake. So they don't really care about the safety of the thing. They don't really care about establishing a stable internal dialogue. They're not trying to use hypnosis as therapy. They're just using hypnosis at its most powerful level to create more and more powerful hypnosis. And so they're getting really great results at becoming master self-hypnotists. But there's 2 major problems. One, they have absolutely no idea what they're doing. They don't know that they're doing hypnosis, and they don't really know how the process works. They're doing fantastic hypnotic inductions. Fantastic. Really, the fucking reality shifters are some of the best self-hypnotists that I've ever seen. But they have no idea that that's what they're doing at all. And that's worrying, because if they don't know the technical process behind how the mind works and how the mind makes these things happen, then they could screw it up somehow. They could give themselves some very bad suggestions and change the way that their mind works by accident, because they're essentially telling their brain to work a certain way. A lot of them are also doing this thing called disassociation, where they're basically putting themselves in an indefinite trance where they alter their perception of reality even when they're not in a hypnotic state, so they're imagining that they're in a reality that they're not in. So they're basically making themselves like pseudo-schizophrenic on purpose. Disassociation is usually a description of like you not being in reality. Okay, it's when you're detached from reality to a certain extent. But they're using it in combo with something that I think is called derealization. I'd have to look up the technical term. But what they're basically doing is putting their conscious mind in this dreamland and letting their subconscious mind go on autopilot with their body. This is a very worrying state to put themselves in. They're altering their conscious processes without really knowing how any of this stuff works. So they're, on one hand, they're doing these fantastical induction rites. Like, it removes most of the negative side effects from level 3 hypnosis, like forgetting shit and, whatever. Like, it removes a lot of the hard work from level 3 hypnosis. Like, they're definitely getting into level 3, which is, like, fantastic for first-time hypnotists that don't really know what they're doing. But on the other hand, as good as their inductions are, their actual comprehension of what hypnosis is pretty abysmal. Like, it's really bad. Especially the associate, like, they believe like a clone takes their place in their consciousness and pilots their body around while they're off in these other worlds that they've created for themselves. But the reality is that they're just tripping balls. That they're just doing the consciousness, but instead of seeing the world the way that it is, they're seeing it the way that they want it to be. And this is an issue when done improperly. When they're just laying in their bed and imagining whatever in their own little world, that's fine. But trying to create a permanent trance-like state to augment your reality, to disassociate completely from who you are in the real world, and create a fictional reality to permanently alter your world this way is extraordinarily dangerous and irresponsible, and somebody should really advise them that, one, what they're doing is hypnosis, and two, that they can create very serious mental conditions as using such powerful hypnosis without knowing what it is or how they're using it. Now, part of the reason for this is because a lot of shifters, as they call themselves, or reality shifters, are sold on the idea that what they're doing is not actually hypnosis, but is instead a supernatural event. Okay, so they think that it's actually scientific, but the reality is that their belief in it is without evidence, and so they're believing in a supernatural thing, but they're just calling it science. The term used for this is often pseudoscience, and that works. So the pseudoscientific belief that they have, that's actually supernatural, is that they think that they are sending their conscious mind into an alternate reality version of themselves' mind. So basically they believe that there's infinite versions of themselves over the multiverse of many very different realities. Multiverse, by the way, is a theory that's never been proven. In fact, it's not even a theory, it's actually a hypothesis, which is, a hypothesis is the scientific word for guess. A theory is the scientific word for we tested it really hard and we're pretty sure it's true. And a fact is the scientific word for don't bother me about this anymore. Things that go up come fucking down. So there's very few facts, lots of theories, and quite a numerous number of hypotheses. And one of those hypotheses is multiverse theory. And I call it a theory because that's what other people call it, but it's not really a theory. It's actually a hypothesis because we don't have any evidence for its existence. A lot of people use Schrodinger's cat as an example. I could go into why that's a terrible example, but maybe when I do a video on multiverse theory, I'll talk about that, but I'm not going to. Okay, so suffice to say, we have no evidence that multiverses even exist. But even if we did, let's say for the sake of example that we somewhere out there, we believed that there was a world where Dracula really happened. That was a real reality. Vampirism was a real condition in the real world, and this guy called Dracula really had it, and he really went to Victorian London, and that's a thing that actually happened. So there's a Dracula verse in the multiverse, and you could send yourself back to that time, and somehow they're still in Victorian London, and so you've basically possessed this person from this time period, and now you're living in this new world, experiencing this new world. That's what reality shifters believe, that they can basically send their consciousness into the infinite multiverse and that every reality created or imagined becomes a real reality, and that they can actually experience it in a physical sense by basically astral projecting their mind into this body in this other realm. Now, a lot of these people are 12 to 14 years old, and a lot of them want to be in the Harry Potter universe and want to date bad boy Draco Malfoy and want to create these fantastical realities, and I don't blame them. Actual reality can be very boring, and tapping into the power of hypnosis and dreams and all kinds of shit can be a way of escapism. I mean, lots of people do drugs for the very same reason. Reality can really blow sometimes, especially modern reality where the authentic experience is so hard to actually find, and these kids just want to touch something and want to feel like something's actually real instead of experiencing everything secondhand, which they do through their computers. They want to experience something real. They want to go to a world where they can walk through a forest and not have to take a picture of it with their phone, So they're trying to have these real experiences, and instead they're disassociating from the real world with these powerful hypnotic suggestions, and they think that they're sending their mind into another person's body and having real experiences out there in the multiverse. But the reality is that they are either, in the best case scenario, laying on their bed tripping balls, and in the worst case scenario, walking around under the delusion that they're in Hogwarts. So I wouldn't say reality shifting is dangerous. I think it's a hobby that most people will get out of, mostly because I don't think a lot of these people are going to keep doing it once they realize that the multiverse theory business end, once they realize that the experience isn't a part of reality in the strictest sense, I think a lot of them will abandon it, or once real life comes a knocking and they realize oh shit, I'm not passing my school, or I'm not doing stuff, or I don't have a real boyfriend because I'm dating fucking Draco Malfoy. Once they realize that they're missing out on the real world for their imagined one, they'll probably leave their imagined world behind for the most part. But there are some who have permanently altered the way that their brains function because of this shit. And it makes me mad. Because all it would take is talking to somebody like me who knows what hypnosis is and knows what they're talking about to convince them that, hey, no, you're not projecting your mind into the multiverse. You're projecting your conscious mind into your subconscious mind. You're creating a world in your subconscious mind that you're able to interact with like a dream. You're essentially reverse dreaming, that's what you're doing. You're not actually in Hogwarts. Now, to be fair, I don't think reality shifting is all that bad. I think reality shifting could be a very good thing. Hypnosis is due for a modern upgrade. These kids have created fantastic induction rituals that are really, really good at creating strong hypnosis. They've negated some of the negatives of stage 3 hypnosis. They've created cool automatic triggers. I'll talk about triggers when I talk more about the actual structure of being hypnotized, but their inductions are amazing. And the term reality shifting, as a way of conveying the idea of shifting one's perception of reality, I think is actually not that bad of a term. In fact, reality shifting is a more accurate term than hypnosis ever was. So if people, let's say reality shift therapy were to become a thing in place of hypnosis, and it were to be upgraded with these modern inductions, I think it would be the biggest revelation to hypnosis since Erickson was around. Erickson was a famous hypnotist that created Ericksonian hypnosis, and it's kind of the best hypnosis on the market, but it was really poorly recorded, so we don't have a lot of it left. But since Erickson, these kids are probably the biggest thing to happen to hypnosis. It's unfortunate so many of them are going to destroy their minds, but the good news is that the things that they're discovering are well documented because they're posting them all over TikTok. I learned about reality shifting today. I'm making this video today because I learned about reality shifting today, and I used one of the inductions that the kids are using for reality shifting on TikTok so that I could experience reality shifting for myself. The effects were very strong, the strongest hypnosis I have ever done, and I've been experimenting with self-hypnosis since I was 17 years old, back in 2010. So, yeah, very potent stuff. But the thing is that I was able to come up with a script based off of things that were realistic goals to obtain. And I knew that this was a form of hypnosis and not me sending my mind into another reality. So I knew to give the things that happened there the proper weight, because I understood that the things that I was doing in my mind were altering my brain chemistry, and so I made sure not to do anything that was going to alter it in undesirable ways. And I know how to talk to my mind to convey very clear ideas of what I want, which is important if you want to have a positive experience with any kind of hypnosis. So my advice, if you decide to learn the new reality shifting forms of hypnosis, is 1, know how regular good old-fashioned hypnosis works first. You read a book on it before you start using these very powerful scripts. And 2, know that what you're doing, despite having a different name, the reality shifting that you're doing is hypnosis, not metaphysical astral projection into a body from the multiversal No. Hypnosis. Very powerful, very good, stage 3 hypnosis using newer induction methods. I used the Wonderland induction method because there was the Raven induction method, and then the Wonderland induction method, and the elevator induction method. The elevator is the oldest one of those. I've used the staircase induction method before in my old hypnotic practice. So I already knew about that one kind of. But the Wonderland and Raven induction methods are fairly new so far as I know, and they're very powerful. They also, instead of having you count backwards from 10, they have you counting to 100, and then every 10 or so numbers you say an affirmation, and that was very effective for me. But again, I would advise all of these people who are doing reality shifting, who think it's a metaphysical thing, to please, please, please understand. 1, metaphysics does not work that way. I am a wizard. I'm an actual magical practitioner. My whole thing is metaphysics. You cannot project your mind permanently into the mind of another person in the multiverse, not even another version of you in the multiverse. That's not how any of this works. And secondly, and more importantly, what you are doing has a name. It is called hypnosis. It has been practiced for hundreds of years. Now, if you want to call it reality shifting or magic or whatever, that's all well and good. But pick up a book on hypnosis and learn what you're doing so that you don't put yourself in a permanent state of derealization. So that you don't turn yourself loopy permanently. It's fine to be loopy sometimes. I put myself in a very powerful trance-like state today. I was tripping balls, but I knew I was tripping balls. I knew I wasn't in another reality, and I was able to get myself out of it because I knew how to release the technique. And even then, I've never experienced hypnosis this powerful before, so it took me an hour and a half to completely release the technique, and I didn't know that it would. So I can't imagine what these kids who are doing this every single day, they're creating states so powerful that I'm not, and if they don't know how to break them, yes, they can choose to come out of the state, but they might not be able to choose to undo the changes they've made to their brain, and that's the concerning thing. Isn't necessarily that they'll continue to think that Draco Malfoy is their boyfriend, but that the things that they did while they were at Hogwarts that affected the way that their subconscious functions will permanently continue to alter the way that their subconscious functions in the future. That's the concern, not them permanently not understanding reality. Although disassociation is a concern in this case, because some of them are purposefully trying to create permanent states of disassociation, which is absolutely mad, and I'm very worried about them. But reality shifting is cool. Reality shifting itself, I like the name. I like the way it's being packaged. I like the new induction methods. I like that people are thinking and talking about hypnosis again. I 100% approve. Just please know that you're doing hypnosis. Please know that you're not sending your mind into another multiversal thing, and don't be swindled into thinking that it's a good idea to put yourself into a permanent trance-like state where you're no longer a part of reality. Being a part of reality is cool. Reality is always superior to fiction. Art imitates life. you know? Always. Every time. Everything magical in Harry Potter is inspired by the real world. Everything magical in any of the stories you've ever read is inspired by all of this right here. The perceived reality that you have inside you is based off of the external reality that really exists. Reality is an absolute gold mine, and if you want to live your life through dreams, fine, but just make sure that you're connected to the source from which those dreams come from. Don't disassociate with reality, okay? Please? Just don't make that the goal of your hypnotic practice. That's all I ask. Anyways, next time we'll be talking about the right ways to perform hypnosis. I will teach you guys everything that I know about hypnosis. That's what we'll be doing next time. I look forward to seeing you again. This has been the Blue Wizard, signing out.